Konnichiwa Mina, this is T Security, and you're watching a quick history of Donkey Kong. I hope you guys enjoy. Back in the 1980s, Nintendo tried to get the license to make a Popeye game. Unfortunately, they did not get it at first, so they had to turn to the god of Nintendo. Miyamoto was asked to make a game because Nintendo really needed to get a game out into the arcades. Miyamoto really thought about it. What else could we do? He was inspired by, of course, Popeye, Beauty and the Beast, and decided to bring in a couple characters that normally wouldn't go together, but he thought it would be a great idea. The first things, let's grab a gorilla. What can we do with this? Well, let's make him the enemy. Next, let's grab a carpenter. You know, why not? And might make a good hero. Then of course, let's add a girlfriend. That way we have something that will be different. Might actually work. It was definitely a strange combination to bring together, but after we saw everything, it did work, and the world was introduced to 3 new stars in the video game world. But first, with all these stars coming, what names would be great for this? So he thought it'd be funny to use Donkey, which literally translated into Stupid Kong. People laughed at this name and thought it wouldn't work, but now it is bigger than ever. So, who are our stars? Well, here's our list. Starting off, we have Jumpman, or as we came to know it as, Mario. Our next one is Pauline, the girlfriend, that now Mario has to be diligent and brave to go and save from the evil Donkey Kong. These were the new stars in 1981 that everybody will shortly become infatuated with this amazing new game, Donkey Kong. 1 year later, Nintendo released Donkey Kong Jr. in 1982. This was the only game that Mario really was the villain. In this game, you had to play as DK Jr. and save your father from the evil clutches of Mario. Talk about a switch here for our hero. After being such a great hero, now we can see the villain that was truly inside our hero. Kinda sad, but it made for a great game. Next, in 1983, Nintendo released Donkey Kong 3. In this game, DK is the villain, but Mario isn't even in this game, because the next hero we get to play as is Stanley Bugman, who works in a greenhouse and is fighting against DK and the evil insects which are trying to kill his plants. And it was very weird because that's what the point of it was. You had to fight and push DK into a beehive, making him come back as the villain once again. During this time, the only way to get newer DK games was from the Game & Watch series. It wasn't a bad thing at all. There was still some fun DK games out there, and some really, really good ones out there. Each of these games came out from 1982 to 1984. So if you were into the Game & Watch and a DK fan, now the world was in your hands because you can enjoy portable Donkey Kong games. Next was 1994, and this was a fun year for DK. The first thing we got was our next mini handheld. This, of course, is the Nelsonic Game Watch Donkey Kong, which gave gamers an amazing way to play Donkey Kong. You have your watch, it's right there, and it's playable. What was cooler than this? Well, that would be our next little game that really took DK to the top. Same year, Nintendo released Donkey Kong for the Game Boy and Super Game Boy. This is the game that showed everybody Donkey Kong is one of our main characters. And uniquely, this is the first game that the infamous Donkey Kong tie was used in the game to show DK was different and he's ready to show us what he can do. Next thing was Rare took DK to the next level. Not only did we get a brand new game in November of 1994, but they connected the DK family tree and let us know how the games work together. This game, of course, was Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo. And, like I said, it showed us the family tree, which showed us that Cranky Kong was the original Donkey Kong from Donkey Kong, too many Kongs there, from the early 80s. And DK Jr. was actually the Donkey Kong that we got to play in this new adventure. Next game was in 1995. Donkey Kong Country couldn't just stand still on the Super Nintendo. It had to take inspiration from Mario series and take it on its own land series. This was, of course, Donkey Kong Land for the Game Boy. And it was a re-release of the previous game on Super Nintendo directly to the Game Boy. Country was doing so well that it ran from 1994 to 1997. Each Super Nintendo release had a Game Boy release. Out of all of them, the best one was Donkey Kong Country 2, and with its re-release for the Game Boy, Donkey Kong Land 2. And out of the two, the Game Boy version personally was my favorite out of this particular story. 1999, the next one, Donkey Kong 64, came out to the Nintendo 64, the next popular system. In this one, you get to play as a 3D Donkey Kong with multiple Kongs. Each of the Kongs having different powers to allow you to gain access to more areas in the game. This is one of the games that I have not had the opportunity to play, but one of those that the die-hard fans have said, totally worth trying out. The next adventure was a weird one in 2002. Donkey Kong Jungle Beats, where you don't get to use a controller, you actually have to use bongos to actually play the game. Very strange, very good game, but it came with even better things after that. We then got a rhythm-based game to where we could actually play the bongos and enjoy fantastic music. It was just pretty cool because since it was made by Namco, who made the Taiko Drum Masters, we knew that the game was going to work and have some fun music. After music, after bizarre adventures, after fun adventures, we had a question. What would Nintendo do next? And Nintendo answered that question for us on the Game Boy Advance, with our next title coming in 2004, Mario vs. Donkey Kong. This was a fantastic game. They brought back the original cast. You have Donkey Kong, you have Mario, and you have Pauline, who is kidnapped by Donkey Kong once again. And now you have to go and save all of these mini Marios throughout the game to unlock keys and collect different things in the game to see how fast you can complete it. This was a fantastic way to reintroduce Donkey Kong into video games. The coolest part was, it reminds me of a game, the Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle, which was a game I loved for the NES. So that's why this is one of those games that was absolutely fantastic. Next, in 2005, DK got a very bizarre game, DK, the King of Swing, which was a motion video game for the Game Boy Advance, where you had to really move your Game Boy Advance and able to play the game. Very, very weird one that was. The next game came for the DS. In 2006, a sequel to 2004 Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, The March of the Minis was released. This game was completely different from the original game. It was no longer a crazy castle styled game, but they changed it to match another game that was very fun. In this game, once again, Donkey Kong is furious at Mario and kidnaps Pauline. Mario now has to go and save it, but differently this time. Instead of collecting keys and all that, he now has to help the mini Marios and play Lemmings, which is exactly what the game feels like when you're playing it. But in the end, after doing everything, you get to save the first girlfriend, Pauline, once again. And you'll see Mario happy with the original one who wasn't in another castle. This game would be the second racing game. Of course, the first one was Diddy Kong Racing, which did star Diddy Kong in 1994 on the Nintendo 64. This game did not have Donkey Kong in it, but a good friend of his, which did add to the universe. Later, it was re-released as a second one in 2007 with online capabilities. This was, of course, personally one of my favorite racing games on the Nintendo DS because of just how much fun it was being able to replay this game, and of course with the online features, adding that to the mix. Game to help Donkey Kong be able to be in his official racing game was released, Donkey Kong Barrel Blast. It plays very similar to actually having to use the bongos, and at that rate, shaking your nunchuck and Wii remote, you lose a lot of weight while playing this game. The game itself was very familiar to a previous title, the Mario Kart series. So the game itself, I've heard, is pretty fun, if you're willing to lose all those calories, that is. The next game was kind of a surprise. This was a sequel that was released in 2007 based off of the 2005 game DK King of Swing, and this one was called DK Jungle Climber. Very unique to see a sequel to this game. Not stopping at sequels or re-releases, Nintendo then in 2010 released Donkey Kong Country Returns, which was a reimagining of the classic Super Nintendo game for the Wii. Now we get to see it in good graphics and enjoy the original craziness. This, of course, is not the ending of the DK games. He's been featured in multiple mini games such as Mario Tennis for Virtual Boy and Mario Kart and many more. There has been so many new games released in the recent years for the 3DS and the Wii U. But there's so many more games that we have to wait for to see just how far Donkey Kong will go. Will he continue to be that special place in our heart for the lovable ape? Or will Nintendo officially say, we no longer care about this character, as some characters have, unfortunately, gone the way of the dinosaurs? Though, it does make me wonder, what will have become of our lovable ape, Donkey Kong, in the Donkey Kong series? Thank you for watching this history of Donkey Kong. I hope you've enjoyed. This is T. Sakura saying ciao and sayonara.